For years, Evelyn Boone had lived alone on the outskirts of the Wyoming frontier. Tucked away in a weather-beaten cabin where silence was her only companion and the wide whispering plains her only witness. She had chosen this life, or rather, life had chosen it for her, after heartbreak shattered everything she once dreamed of, her family gone, her engagement broken, and her trust in humanity left in ashes. Each day, she rose with the sun, fed her chickens, chopped her firewood, and patched the roof that always leaked whenever the clouds grew heavy. The loneliness hurt sometimes, but she had trained her heart to stay quiet. She believed no one needed her, and she convinced herself she didn't need anyone either. But one stormy evening, just as dusk sank into the soaked horizon, and lightning flickered like trembling hands across the sky, she heard a desperate knock at her door, loud, frantic, almost trembling. She froze. No one ever came here. When she opened the door just an inch, she saw a tall man leaning heavily against the porch post, soaked through, shivering, his arms wrapped around a tiny bundle. "Ma'am, please," he whispered, his voice rough like he hadn't spoken in hours. "Can we stay one night?" Evelyn hesitated, her hand still on the door, her mind racing. The stranger was a cowboy, she could tell by the worn boots, the saddlebag slung across his shoulder, and the quiet strength in his gaze, despite exhaustion darkening his eyes. But it wasn't the man who made her heart stumble, it was the baby in his arms. Swaddled in a wet cloth, its little fists trembling against the cold, she whispered, "Who are you?" He swallowed hard. "Name's Colton Hayes. I didn't know where else to go. My horse fell in the storm. We've been walking for miles." A crack of thunder shook the ground, and the baby let out a soft cry that pierced Evelyn deeper than she expected. Against every wall she'd built inside herself, she opened the door wide and stepped back. "Come in." Colton hurried inside, holding the child carefully as if every drop of rain were a danger. Evelyn threw a blanket over both of them, her hands steady despite the sudden tremor inside her chest. She guided him to the fire, tossed more logs in, and watched the flames rise. "The baby," she murmured softly, "is he yours?" Colton nodded, staring down at the tiny face with a love so fierce it made something ache inside her. "His name's Luke, his mother." Past last week, Evelyn felt the room tilt slightly. She had known grief, but the weight in his voice carried a pain deep enough to drown in. She kneeled beside him, gently taking the baby to warm him near the fire. "You should have been resting," she whispered. "You're exhausted." Colton's shoulders slumped. "I couldn't stop. Needed to get Luke somewhere safe." "Safe?" she echoed. "From what?" He hesitated, and she saw fear flash in his eyes. "Her family? They blamed me for her death. Said I didn't deserve to raise him. They were coming after us." Evelyn's heart pounded. She had run from her past to... She knew the kind of fear that clung to your ribs. She looked at the baby sleeping in her arms, and for the first time in years, her home didn't feel so empty. It felt needed. Alive. She touched Luke's tiny hand, and the baby curled his fingers around her thumb, as if choosing her. "You can stay tonight," she said softly, "but tomorrow, we'll figure out more." Colton repeated, almost in disbelief. Evelyn didn't understand it herself, but something about the man, his raw honesty, his desperate courage called to a part of her she thought had died long ago. They ate a simple dinner while rain hammered the roof. Colton told her about the woman he'd loved, about the promises he made to protect their son, about the fear that drove him across the plains. Evelyn found herself telling him things she hadn't said aloud in years, how she had lost her family, how she had been betrayed, how she had convinced herself she wasn't meant to care for anyone again. When the fire crackled low and the storm softened into a quiet drizzle, Evelyn took a breath that felt like her first in a decade. "Maybe," she said carefully, "you don't have to run alone anymore." Colton looked at her with eyes full of gratitude and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. "Evelyn, I don't want to drag you into danger." She shook her head. "Maybe helping someone is exactly what I've been needing." The baby stirred, and Evelyn rocked him gently, surprised at how natural it felt. Outside, the rain eased, and the moon broke through the clouds like a promise. For the first time in years, Evelyn's cabin felt like a home with purpose. And for the first time since he lost everything, Colton felt hope. Maybe this meeting in the storm wasn't chance. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was fate. As the night deepened, and they shared quiet glances full of unspoken truths, Evelyn realized that sometimes life gives you back the pieces you thought were gone forever, just not in the way you expected. And as the fire warmed the room, and the baby slept peacefully between them, she whispered a silent vow to herself. She wouldn't turn away from this new beginning. Asterisk.